There we go. Sorry about that. Thanks. It's a new mic, so now I know because it will be green. So sorry, guys. I am your legal bestie, Attorney Simone. This is another episode of Girl, Is That Legal? And I am very hoarse. I think it's my allergies. So that's why I sound like a man. I missed you too, Latrace. I missed you guys terribly. Y'all feel free to message under one of the community posts or a video and be like, girl, what are you up to? When are you coming back? My voice was just so bad. Uh, Came in to say, hey, yes, this title, yes. Hey, are you there? She said, be right back. I came to scream at the title, which today's title is ICE Just Won't Let Porsha and Simon Divorce. I had a number of topics that I was going to try to get into today, but I feel like instead we just need to focus on Porsha and Simon. I'll deal with the others tomorrow. So the reason it was so relevant, y'all, and I'm gonna be taking a few sips because as you can tell, um, I have a sore throat. Um, Actually, before I jump into that, of course, we got to do church announcements, housekeeping matters. Don't forget, you can go to my website, SimoneRedwine.com. You can go there to get my ebook, which is Background Checks 101, teaching you how to do those. Or you can book a consult with me anywhere in the nation. They start at just $159. And I just figured out how to work YouTube, the shopping part. So now, after this video, I'm going to connect it so you can buy my book directly from this video. You can click one of the shopping links right below the video. You can also you can buy the gift card, which is $159 for a 30-minute consultation with me. So you buy the gift card, and then you'll get an email that'll give you my calendar and allow you to schedule. And y'all, I am so excited about something that I will also be rolling out this month, which is I get a lot of calls, messages, etc., from people who tell me, I think I want to go to law school. I am rolling out my law school coaching program. So I'm going to start with a free webinar that's basically about, so you think you want to go to law school. This is going to be for grown folks who are open to and thinking about maybe they want to go to law school. So we're going to talk about a lot of tips, tricks, the real deal about law school. And then for those who decide they actually want to go, I will have a hand holding coaching program to help you do what I did, which is get a full scholarship to law school. Because it's one thing to go, but nobody's trying to break the bank trying to go to school again, right? So I'm going to have coaching programs and webinars that are going to be both for like the people that do the traditional route, come straight out of undergrad, going to law school, but also I want something for us grown folks, for people who are working a job or and are considering and want to do it with the least amount of risk possible. So it's going to be super fun. It's going to be super affordable. The webinar will be free. Here's how you stay abreast. So you see at the bottom, the disclaimer is rolling across. That is my new number. Y'all can text me. Text me at 323-689 5683. That's 323-689 5683. You're going to text that number, give me your contact info. I'll add you to my little contact list. And then as I have these rollouts, you'll get notification. Also, maybe you have a child who's thinking about law school. You can sign them up. I make it super fun. Y'all, nothing I do is boring. So there's that. All right. So we're going to start with Paula Simon. Paula Tink Tink Simon. Oh, Simon. Now, there was supposed to be today, the 30th, April 30th, was supposed to be a final hearing in Simon and Portia's divorce. I know Portia was too excited. Oh, also, guys, I want to let you know before we get deeper in this, I'm going to leave time at the end if anyone wants to call in with questions. I'm putting the link right here. I just added it to the chat. One of the mods, if you guys can pin it. So if someone wants to ask a legal question at the end of this breakdown, you're more than welcome to. I've been getting a lot. Of course, you can do it for free. Don't have to show your face, but I do have to be able to see you backstage to know, you're not a troll. All right, so let's get back to it. So today was supposed to be a special hearing, basically the final hearing on Simon and Portia's divorce. Now, there were two matters that were lingering. Basically, Simon filed a motion Porsha filed a motion to demand that the court enforce the prenup. And Simon filed a motion to say, no, Your Honor, don't. So what was set for the docket this morning, I believe at 11 a.m., was that first they were going to decide, is the prenup going to be enforced? As in, the judge was going to make a determination if the prenup was going to be enforced. And then number two, after that decision, based on the enforcement, there was going to be a trial, a final divorce hearing trial, meaning she was going to be done. At the end of the today, it was going to be done one way or the other. Well, we know Simon has now been locked up in ICE since February 19th. Hold on, I'm going to go ahead and pin that comment real. I'm going to pin it real quick. So why is this not working? I don't know. Let me pin it. There we go. Got it. All right. Great. We got somebody backstage too. All right. So again, so the hearing was supposed to be today, but Simon's been locked up at ICE. So his lawyer is asking for what's called a continuance, basically saying, no, Your Honor, no, Your Honor, we can't have this final hearing. He's been locked up. And basically the gist of her points, and I'm going to read a few points from this is the motion right here, is she's like, Your Honor, he's been locked up since the evening of February 19th. And since then, she's had very limited access to him. And I've been telling people, ICE is prison. ICE is jail. People think of it as, they call it a detention center. I really wish people would stop, because you have fewer rights in ICE than you do at a federal or even a state prison. Most ICE detention centers are privately owned. And because Homeland Security and the feds and ICE does not basically abide by state law or even federal law. So, for example, me and a federal client that is in the federal jails, I'd be able, like with the Diddy case, I'd be able to go up there, schedule, I could go any day of the week, meet with my client, work on our case. Not with ICE. And his lawyer outlines that. So here are the conditions and why she was asking to postpone it. Let's get on into it. Okay, it says, that paragraph 13, Simon is detained at the ICE detention facility at Stewart Detention Center in Lumpkin, Georgia, over 2 hours away from Atlanta, Fulton County. Since being in ICE custody, he has had limited means of communication with his legal counsel and no access to any of his electronic devices, including his cell phones and laptop. Y'all, there was a New York Supreme Court case where this guy was in the middle of a criminal trial. And over the weekend, the judge made an order that said that defendant was not to communicate with his lawyer over the weekend. Well, he wanted to share with the lawyer that some of the testimony that was given was a lie and that he had proof, like in his cell phone, to discredit it. They didn't let him. Ultimately, he was found guilty and it got overturned by the New York Supreme Court because he was unable to access his electronic devices and unable to communicate with his lawyer in advance of trial. So that is unlawful, and it is a violation of due process to force somebody to go to trial before they've been able to prepare with their lawyers, including access to computers and cell phones. So I don't know how that's going to happen from ICE, because ICE don't care. They're above the law. So next it says, since the last court appearance on February 26th, again, Simon was not there. The lawyer was there without him to explain he wasn't there because he got locked up with ICE. That was the day they were originally supposed to have this same final divorce hearing and final divorce trial. She says, respondent and his legal team have taken measures to expedite respondent's legal matters, Simon's the respondent, which include the filing of emergency motions in his immigration case. While defendant is anticipating being released from ICE custody soon, his release date is unknown. He should not anticipate that for reasons I will explain. Further, since last appearing before this court on February 26th, Simon and his counsel have explored other alternatives for Simon to attend and participate in the virtual proceedings in his divorce. See, the judge already changed it from in person to Zoom. Porsha is the one that wanted Zoom. Simon was like, no, make her come down here. And then he ended up being locked up, and now he needs the Zoom. It says, ICE has a virtual attorney visitation program that facilitates confidential attorney-client conversations through virtual technology like Cisco, WebEx, or Skype. However, this program just serves as communication between attorneys and their detained clients, not as a means for a detainee to attend outside court proceedings virtually, like this divorce proceeding. In other words, they can't do Zoom court through ICE. It said respondents counsel, as in Simon's lawyer, has also inquired with ICE about whether Simon will be able to attend the divorce proceedings via Zoom. ICE has advised it will not be able to accommodate any such request. Let me tell you, I feel sorry for anybody in ICE who might be in the middle of a foreclosure, a divorce, any of that. You about to have some default judgments all on top of your head. It says ICE further advised that in order to have the Simon physically appear in court for the hearing, a production order / writ would be required from this court. In other words, this court, the judge would have to make a special order demanding that ICE present Simon for his hearing. It says, as Simon will not be able to attend a virtual proceeding in this matter while in ICE custody, the only way he can attend any Zoom or virtual proceedings scheduled in this case is once he is released from detainment by the federal government. Sir, you are going back to Africa. When the feds release you, it'll be back to Africa on an airplane. It's not like the other days when they would release you and you got to check in, as he has been doing for the last 30 years. It says, or in the alternative, ICE has further advised that in order to have respondent appear in court, that the order has to be signed. It says, lawyer for Simon states that she cannot safely proceed with the final trial, nor an evidentiary hearing on the motion to enforce the prenup without the presence of her client, the respondent. The respondent does not have access to any of his devices and is only granted limited communication while detained. And because the hearing will also be a final hearing to adjudicate all the issues of this divorce, if the motion to enforce the prenup is granted, the respondent's attendance and participation in this proceedings are necessary. So y'all get the gist. And the judge granted it. So what happened today was the judge said, all right, we are going to move this proceeding to June. There's a June 11th date. However, Simon's counsel filed this real juicy motion I'm going to get to next, all about the prenup, baby. All about his goofy little prenup. Hold on, which one am I? Yes, about the prenup. Now, to be clear, I've done a prior video. I'm going to make a little Simon playlist, but I've done a prior video on this topic where I explain that part of the reason why Porsha likely wanted a divorce is that he's here fraudulently. For the last 30 years, he has been buying time. He has had deportation orders out on his behind since the 90s. So he came in 1980 lawfully on a travel visa. Then he overstayed that visa. He left and then he came back and started scamming people. Because he was charged with felonies for that scamming, and I don't know if it was probation or whatever he served, he was then ordered deported. So what did he do then? He used the identity of some sharecropper person. He used the identity of someone else who was here on a farm worker visa. Yeah, y'all, that's really how they get a lot of these low-wage workers in. Is it was a farm worker visa. He used that, and then he was able to stay longer. Well, eventually, it was determined that he was not the same person as that visa, I guess fingerprints or what have you. And literally, like a month before the wedding to Porsha, he filed again for like the 4th time to try to stay. The court said, no, you're a liar. And not only that, it was discovered that when they previously said, no, you're deported for the scamming, no, you're deported, you need to be deported for the fake identity, he then married a woman Well, the feds investigated the marriage and determined it was a sham marriage because they never lived together and never even consummated the marriage. As a result, he can't marry Porsha, Fallon, or anybody else for that matter to gain citizenship. Once you do that, marriage for citizenship is out of the corner. Now, I do believe he was dragging his feet on the divorce because he was probably trying to find some other way to legally be here. But yeah, you're right. He was ordered deported previously. But what happens is when you're not causing trouble, when you're not getting arrested, and it had been, he hadn't been arrested since the 90s. When that happens, but you're paying taxes. He bought a $7 million home. Prior to the $7 million home, he had a $2.4 million home. When you're doing those kinds of things, you're not on the radar. And so no one was bothering him. He was even able to travel internationally. No, he doesn't have a US passport, but he was able to come back and forth on the passport, whatever fake person he has been using for the last 30 years. Allegedly, it's like one of his cousins or something. So last year when I reported on this, I literally said, hey, any day now, ICE could go pick him up. Now, that was when we were under Biden, but that's exactly what happened now. ICE went and picked him up. So y'all, what I'm about to share with you now, he then breaks down, this is his motion that he filed this morning to explain why the court should not uphold the prenup. Now, mind you, they met in the spring of 2021. He proposed to her within a month. They then got engaged. They got engaged months later. And then the next year, they began negotiating the prenup. They negotiated that prenup. Hold on. That is not true. Michelle is nice, but Michelle is not a lawyer, and Michelle didn't read the documents. So it was actually back in a prior order. I want to say it started in 2016. At 2016, when that hearing took place, he was ordered deported or deportable, whatever it was. So 327 is probably when they created a warrant to go and do it. But prior to that, he had been warned. And that's going to be relevant here. So for reasons you'll see when we break down into this, I'm not giving Simon the benefit of the doubt of the 327. Because first of all, 327, he was arrested February 19th. So I might be saying it wrong. She said she spoke to him. I'm talking March 27th this year after the ICE arrest. So what that might be, that could be that the Trump administration has ordered he get on a plane and be sent somewhere. Now that might be the case. That could be. But what I am saying is that he's from the last time that he petitioned the federal courts for citizenship and was denied. And they literally, I wish I still had this paperwork, but when they broke down all the reasons he was getting denied, from that day forward, he knew he could be deported at any moment. So I think I misunderstood what you typed, T. But yes, it would make more sense that he then gets arrested February 19th. And then while sitting in ICE, they likely made an order that says he's supposed to be sent away at some point. It says, Porsha can't get no man hanging out at the immigration office unless he needs a green card. Oh, Lord. Don't nobody want to beat that Bush up, but it's scam. Oh, my God. Oh, my God. Okay, she said he has been deported to Nigeria. He's not deported. Okay, so somebody's lying. So either your friend Michelle is lying, the person they talked to on the phone telling Simon's business is lying, or the Simon's lawyer is lying. Why? Because the lawyer, in what I just read to you, said that he's currently in ICE's custody, and that motion that the lawyer signed was filed on the 28th of April. So as of the 28th of April, he was still here. And as of today, he's still here because this morning's hearing, while he didn't attend, the lawyer attended for him. And the lawyer made the arguments, blah, blah, blah. And the court set the June 11th divorce hearing date. I do believe he is waiting to be sent back to Africa. That's right. So that would be consistent. I'm just saying he's not been deported. Also, here's what's interesting. He can get deported back to Africa and he still must attend the June 11th divorce hearing for the final divorce. Still got to come. This is important to note. And that's because the judge can turn it back to Zoom. So he's just going to have to find some of that good old Nigerian internet and log on into Zoom from Nigeria and do that divorce proceeding. Go ahead, hit that like button. He sure can and should. The reason why is because if he doesn't show up, Porsha wins automatically. So he better log into that. Oh, I'm messing up my computer. He better log into that computer screen with his lawyer and say what needs to be said. Yes, I'll break down the MISA and the other lawsuit. I'll do that one tomorrow. It says if ICE had detained Simon before Porsha filed for divorce in February, would she now have full control over his assets? No. No, she wouldn't. And that's because we have due process. So he's permitted to hire a lawyer to fight for him, even if he's being detained the whole time. And then that lawyer has the ability to make all the arguments. The majority of the time when us lawyers make arguments, a lot of times on civil cases, our clients aren't there. Right. Okay, T, I'm not about to argue about this. If you're saying he's ordered deported, I'm saying he's still here. So that's between you, her, and his lawyer, I guess, because he's here today. So I don't know. I believe a court ordered that he got to go back to Africa. That makes perfect sense. I believe that was ordered. I'm just saying maybe they're a little backed up. Or actually, this would make sense too. Remember I told you about how there's hardly any communication with ICE? It very well could have happened that ICE could have deported his behind and not told his lawyer. That would have had to happen recently. And then the lawyer goes to court today and makes the arguments because, as I mentioned, ICE would not let him attend today's hearing. So that totally could have happened. So we'll have to ask Michelle and let me know in the comments. Because you said 3/27, so I'm thinking March 27th. Let me know. I believe he was ordered deported because he's been there since February 19th. So and we've seen people who have been locked up in ICE for far shorter and got deported to El Salvador and otherwise. So it totally would make sense that there would be a deportation order. It's just that in the documents that we're going to read, they talk as though he is still here and available for a hearing. The court set the June 11th hearing. So we'll have to see that June 11th hearing. Is that one going to be him in Nigeria tuning into Zoom, fighting for all his assets? Now, also, when someone gets deported, they don't just lose their assets. America doesn't do that. Hell, America paid all those white people for slaves because they're like, you can't take people's property without compensating them. And America even made, when the Haitians took over, they made Haiti like pay all the white people that enslaved them. And as a result, the Haitians were in a whole bunch of debt. So I say that the analogy, I'm probably saying that a little bit wrong, but they basically made Haiti quite a bit indebted as a result of their liberating themselves. But my point is, with all the assets that he has here, he's either going to have to, he can sell them, he can keep them. He just can't come over here and enjoy them. Got it? Okay. Remember Nene and Michelle are friends with Simon. Michelle also said she spoke with the family and they were crying. But yes, he's in ICE waiting his flight. Okay. Thank you, T. Okay. Sorry, I was being a little sassy with you because I don't got that much of a voice. But all right. So we got down to the bottom of it, which is ordered deported. He's not deported as of today, but it's any day now. But here's the thing. According to these papers, the amount of money that Simon has, he could probably buy one of those gold cards that Donald Trump was saying. You buy this gold card and you can buy your citizenship. What is it? 10 million? I think it's 10 million bucks. According to these papers, he's worth 300 million. Let's get into it. Let's hop on into it. All right, so this man, excuse me. All right, so the overall gist of his argument in these documents of why the prenup should be invalid is, number one, Porsha is a lie. She's a lie. It's all lies. His claim is that she fraudulently induced him into the prenup by telling him that she was going to quit all of her jobs and be a stay-at-home wife. He said that she quit Dish Nation. She quit Housewives. She quit all of that. And that as a result of it, That is why he was willing to agree to the prenup that's going to give her a large lump sum. They do not outline how much the lump sum is, but she's entitled to the large lump sum. And he previously owned $1 million property, I believe $2 million properties, we'll get into it, and sold them both to put down the down payment for this $7 million home for them. So let's read it. He says, he says the parties began dating and became engaged in spring 2021 because he's a love bomber. So he proposed within a month. It says on or about September 21st, wife left her employment with Dish Nation and subsequently left her employment as a cast member on The Real Housewives. She had been on Dish Nation from 2013 to 2021. It says on November 8th of 21, well over a year before the parties got married, husband purchased the $7 million home that he didn't put the address in there solely from his personal separate funds. This is important, y'all. Specifically, he sold 2 of his premarital properties and used the proceeds as the $2.4 million down payment for the marital residence. At the time, the wife also had a premarital home worth $1.8 million in Gwinnett County. In other words, so if he bought this $7 million home, put down 2.4, just doing the math, it automatically right now would have about $5 million in equity. He says, after the wife left her 2 primary sources of income, parties began discussing a prenup. Hold on. Wait a minute. Wait. This is going to be key. During the negotiation phase and through the execution of the prenup, the wife was not working on The Real Housewives of Atlanta, nor with Dish Nation. The wife's decision to quit her jobs, her decision to not return to Real Housewives, her decision to be a stay-at-home wife, and her reduction in income and financial status were all material facts that husband considered and ultimately relied upon when he negotiated and executed the terms of the prenup. Relying on those material facts, husband began paying the wife a 5-figure monthly allowance in consideration of the wife quitting her 2 main sources of income and not returning to Real Housewives. Husband's monthly allowance payments to wife carried over into how the parties negotiated the terms of the prenup. Wait. This first sentence of this first full paragraph is key. After the wife left her, first of all, at this time, she wasn't a wife. She was a fiance. After she left her 2 primary sources of income, they began discussing a prenup in December 2021. In other words, y'all hadn't confirmed the prenup. So it's not like she quit her job because of the prenup, because the prenup demanded it. That's not what happened. And this says they started negotiating in December of 21. They negotiated that sucker for an entire year. It was not signed. It was not signed until November of 2022. Whole year. Here's how that plays in effect. You don't get to spend an entire year with some of the most expensive lawyers in the state of Georgia, the best and the brightest, and then be like, oh, no. This agreement isn't any good. It's not any good. Yes, it is. You had 2 of the best take their time, draft after draft for a year. So it's going to be very difficult for him to convince a judge that him having the best lawyer and the other lawyer didn't know what they were talking about and there wasn't a clear agreement. Because his position is there was no meeting of the minds. So he says, first, the agreement was Porsha wouldn't work. She worked. That's a violation of the prenup. She shouldn't get no money. Second, he says, okay, well, even if you said, Your Honor, there was no agreement she wouldn't work. Well, there was no agreement. There was no meeting of the minds because my expectation is she wouldn't work, and here she is working. And so it's clear it wasn't clear what we were both agreeing to. Boy, you sound stupid. You sound stupid. Get some more likes up in here, y'all. Look at this. Okay, so then let me go to this part. He then says, the wife's decisions to quit her job, her decision not to return to Housewives and stay at home, blah, 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 and reduction in her income were all material facts that husband considered and ultimately relied on when he negotiated. Oh, yeah, I read that already. Sorry. Dropping down. The wife did not disclose, he says, and or misrepresented material facts to the husband at the time that the parties negotiated the prenup, which was, and they signed it November 17th of 22. It says, the wife failed to disclose she would return to her employment on the Housewives as a cast member. Instead of disclosing it, she made it very clear she was leaving the show and not returning. Hold on, but y'all had that whole little wedding special and everything else. So I don't know how that's believable. It said, he writes, but for wife's misrepresentations to the husband about leaving and not returning as a cast member, husband would not have signed off on the prenup terms that require him to pay a substantial financial obligation to the wife, totaling over hundreds of thousands, and terms that require him to split the equity of the $7 million premarital residence with the wife and pay significant debts and expenses for the wife's benefit. So, in other words, they're not laying out the prenup. They didn't attach the prenup. But we do know, and what he's most upset about is that prenup gives her, is going to give her a lump sum, and it gives her 50% equity in the $7 million house that he had a year before they even got married. Good job, Porsha. Good job. Ladies and gentlemen that are watching this, never, I know. Ladies and gentlemen, this is why I say, when women say, I would never sign a prenup, baby, you got to read that thing first. You got to read it. You can end up doing better with the prenup than without. Porsha was married to this man for 15 months before filing. That's it. That's all. There is no court in the state of Georgia that would otherwise give a woman, she's allegedly making 8 to 9 million, give a woman making 8 to 9 million 50% of the equity of a $7 million home for 15 months of marriage. That might be some California shit, miss, but that's not Georgia. 7 million. Yes, honey, 7 million. So the next time you have a homegirl or a homeboy, that homegirl says, I would never sign a prenup. You tell it, well, girl, call legal bestie, because she can help you get one right. Because you might want to sign the Porsche kind of prenup. They are insurance. It says, I think Simon will lose his house. Oh, yeah, Simon will definitely lose the house before he gives it to her. But here's the thing. It's already got $2.4 million in equity because that's what he put on the down payment. So he could probably get somebody, well, $1 million houses like that, it does take longer to sell. That's clear. But even if it's going to go towards foreclosure, she could probably get an investor to take it off her hands for like $5 million. 4 million. Even if it's a loss, it's still more than she had. And she still got her $1 million residence, or $1.8 million, which very likely has appreciated. I check this out. T says, Simon made a whole post supporting Porsha going back to Real Housewives. I believe it. Simon loves the media. He loves publicity. He loves staying in the limelight. So I bet she probably wanted to leave those shows, and they didn't renew her. So it was mutual at that time. And it seemed like she might have wanted to sit down and maybe start a family with him. All right. Now, here's the other. I like it better than the stupid, she went back to work. Because let me tell you what, courts do not penalize women for going back to work. There is no court in America. Well, I won't say that. Because when I did talk about the Tyrese divorce situation, and the judge said because she was working, they were not going to enforce. They did say that she was working, she was making like $7,000 a month. And so they were not going to enforce the prenup provision that gave her money from him. But here we're talking about a prenup provision for the house and then a separate one for cash. So the second thing that he's arguing says that there was a confidentiality provision in the in the prenup, because he's this businessman and he's got all this going on. And so confidentiality is very significant to him, and that Porsha breached by doing these national interviews and telling her business and going on these interviews and saying negative or disparaging things about him. And I'm going to read you some excerpts. When I first read it, I was like, show me the provision. And he initially didn't have the provision, nowhere in there. He gets to it later. I'm going to read it to you. I want y'all to tell me. First, tell me in the chat, do you really think Porsha was expecting to never work again? She was going to marry him and never work again. Also, here, important factor, Porsha didn't go back on Housewives until the divorce. In other words, Porsha can argue, even if the argument is I wasn't going to work, once I filed for divorce and then we were duly separated, which is what she put in her papers, I had no choice. I had to provide for myself and my child. I think that's a very persuasive argument to the judge. I say, Your Honor, I went back to work because I knew it wasn't going to work with him. And so what I'm supposed to do, just sit on the courthouse steps and sell hot dogs? You know, Dennis McKinney used to have that hot dog business. No. So it makes perfect sense. All right. Now, here's the argument about the confidentiality. Let me hear what y'all, I want to know what y'all think. I think of anything, it's probably more persuasive. He says, due to wife's notoriety and fame as a well-known public figure and the husband's private life as a businessman with children from previous relationship, it was extremely important for the husband to have a confidentiality clause in the prenup that prescribed non-consensual recording of himself, his private residence, home life, and children, and provided prohibited disclosure of his personal affairs, business affairs, and personal relationships, including his marriage and relationship with the wife. Consequently, husband negotiated and bargained for a confidentiality clause. The provisions of that clause, quote, prohibit wife from discussing the husband, his family, professional interests, and financial aspects of the parties' relationship. It also prohibits wife from recording any aspect of any activity in or about any home, office, or other property owned, occupied, or used by the husband or any of his family, friends, representatives, or kids, which also includes prohibiting the wife from recording in the marital residence. So that's where the motion came from, where Simon filed the motion to prevent her from filming anything on Real Housewives at that house, even though pursuant to the divorce, she was given the house, and pursuant to the prenup says if they were ever to separate, she gets the house during the pendency of the divorce, and then she's supposed to get half the equity or whatever. So that's how come. And here's what happened, though. Here's the timeline. This matters. Parties were married November 26, 2022, and the ceremony widely publicized. Husband spent over $2 million of his personal money on the expenses of the party's wedding. Hello, you heard that? In a wedding that was widely publicized. So you were okay with her going back to camera then? I guess it's only under your control and supervision. $2 million of his own money. Festivities included a traditional Nigerian wedding on November 25th, 2022, and an American wedding on the 26th. Shortly thereafter, without any forewarning or communication to the husband, on February 22nd, 2024, wife filed this divorce after just 15 months of marriage. Husband found out about it through the media. Wife had reported her divorce to the media and provided the media with the divorce filing before ever serving the husband with the complaint for the divorce. The wife took calculated steps to induce the husband into signing a prenup, only to divorce him after just 453 days of marriage in order to intentionally trigger the provisions of the prenup. In other words, he said, she duped me and she tricked me to get my money. What y'all think? Y'all think she duped him to get his money? Do y'all think she duped him to get his money? And see, this timeline is interesting too from recording. So when he filed the motion. It was actually in June. It was in, yeah. So in June of the prior year, in June of 23, no, June of 24, Porsha filed an emergency motion for the court to order that she could film in the house. She filed that in June. It wasn't no damn emergency. That is not an emergency. In divorce court, an emergency is something happening with the kids. Somebody beat somebody up. Not that. It was filed in June. Court didn't get around to making a ruling until November. And Simon in the court ruled, yes, she can film. June. Let me see what's going on with this internet. I don't know. Oh, I see the problem. All right, guys, let me make sure we're still with you. All right, there we go. So basically, he had from June to respond to this motion. It went all the way to November. He never responded. And so the judge ordered it. But here's the problem. So because Porsha ultimately did not record in her house, even though the court ordered that she could. Here's why. It's because Simon's attorney still said, well, even if you do, we're going to come after you. At the end of the day, corporations like the TV network, they don't want to walk into a lawsuit. They don't want to get a cease and desist. So it's just easier for them and their legal department to tell Porsha, rent a house and record there. And that's what she did. That's what she did. And so he was really, I think this is so also, guys, this gives you context as to why he's been what appears to be like so petty and so messy, is he felt that the way in which she told him, which was by telling the media before telling him, was heartbreaking and was painful. Now, with this whole confidentiality provision, though, he's arguing she broke it first. I guess he's arguing by telling the media. However, arguably, she may argue, hey, Simon been telling our business the whole relationship, and I've never shared anything he didn't already share. So, for example, she put up like a post, and he responded and said something about somebody having erectile dysfunction or something else. She didn't name the person. He responded as though it was himself. Now, if she had clearly said, and I'm talking about Simon, certainly that would be a violation of what appears to be the confidentiality provision. But he outed his damn self. So let's talk about, we're going to go to that section. All right. So this goes into a bunch of different examples of where basically Porsha, of the types of things that Porsha told in telling our business. It says giving interviews about Simon and disclosing info about him, his business interests, his family, his kids. I've never seen her talk about his kids, or financial aspects that she did without his written consent, which was in violation. We got some different, it says on or about November 23rd of 2024. Weiss participated in an interview with Access Hollywood, wherein she discussed her husband and her personal relationship with him without his consent. Then she went on The Breakfast Club, March of 2025, where she participated in interviews centrally focused on her husband. There's footnotes, his personal affairs and their relationship. Among other disparaging remarks, Weiss referred to her husband as a slithering snake, and went on to talk about how many viewers and stuff The Breakfast Club gets. She also went on The View. Just a bunch of I believe she's going to argue. And for those who, really follow the two of them, let us know if you've ever seen him say anything derogatory about her, because what the court can do is decide who breached first, number one, as well as, but does her filing the divorce then allow her to proceed and say what she wants to say? Or is the confidentiality provision and everything else, does it continue until that divorce decree is signed? It says also, Wife revealed on Andy Cohen's show in March, the final straw that ended their marriage. Quote, "It was the betrayal of what I thought we had. I really thought we were the best communicators with each other. And unfortunately, I didn't realize that he had love bombed me and was taking it back. So our relationship had kind of swapped over. And I just realized I needed more. And I think women should be able to stand up and say, I need more. More truth, more this, more that. and a whole lot of other things. Now, it says she did not discuss her relationship. He was always talking negative about her. Mm-hmm. Oop, Tommy Khan said this. Nobody feels sorry for her. Simon was trash. Fallon was a cheater too, and Porsha married him. Simon is a textbook narcissist and will remarry within a week of the divorce. He will if he can get back to America. Well, he could do it over there too. Just want nobody care. I think before he picks up and like lives all the way in Nigeria, he will live lavishly in Dubai just to show that he's living big. But here's the thing. If Porsche is able to show that he lied to her about his citizenship status and the fact that any day now he could be deported, I would argue that that makes all these points moot. Because that would mean Simon entered into the prenup fraudulently. Because you're not about to make me build a life with you. Porsche could have got pregnant or something. I don't know if he's got the snip or whatever. She could have gotten pregnant. A variety of things could have happened, only to find out that any day now your man is deportable. I would argue that that could be certainly an offense to allow for an annulment. The fact that your spouse has lied to you and told you that they are legally in the country and they are not. If I was Portia's lawyer, baby, I would lean all the way in on that. Your Honor, this was fraudulently induced by Simon and Simon exclusively, because this man is known since the 1990s. He had no business being in this country from the first time he was ordered deported and refused to go. And then he had before the wedding. Oh, wait a minute. I had the date somewhere. It was before the prenup was signed. Before the prenup was signed, it was literally days before the wedding. He received an additional court order that said you are denied for becoming a permanent resident, basically because he considers himself a permanent resident. He's not anymore. That court order basically said you are not a lawful permanent resident, and no, we are not going to give you any type of status, any green card status here that would allow you to stay. So because he knew that, arguably, if I was her lawyer, I'd say, absolutely not. Oh, interesting. It says that Porsha had frozen her eggs so that she and Simon could have a baby. Michelle spilled that tea last year, and Porsha confirmed it while filming. Oh, that's good tea. He used her for citizenship. I think Simon thought that by marrying her, it would enable him to ultimately get citizenship because she's this high profile person and da. But it didn't work. All right. So there's some more juice in here, y'all. I want to make sure you get all this. And then it further says, in furtherance of her attempt to not, Porsha, abide by the confidentiality provision, she had the nerve to create a YouTube and then went to court seeking an order that allowed her to record in the marital residence despite the confidentiality provision. Yeah, this is where he says she filed her motion June 17th for an order to allow her to film. The husband filed his response on the 21st, and then the judge ordered it in November. So get over it. Now, interesting. It also says, this is Simon's lawyer wrote this. It says, to the extent that Porsha contends the prenup does not prohibit her from filming and recording in the marital residence, then the prenup is still not enforceable because it was apparent that the parties did not have a meeting of the minds regarding the interpretation, intent, and meaning of the confidentiality terms of the prenup, thus not forming a valid contract. Shut up. No, that's not how that worked. If that was the case, so basically he's saying, well, it's clear that we're not agreeing, so that must mean we didn't agree back then, or we weren't clear on what was written in there. If that was the case, everybody would say that when there's a disagreement. You can't, after the fact, be like, no, this wasn't a valid contract, despite taking a whole year to negotiate it. It's not valid because you see us right here now arguing over the interpretation. It also states during the case, the wife refused to provide her contracts and release how she made money. Well, the thing is, her amount of money that she earns is not relevant to whether or not the prenup is enforceable. Enforceability should be you read the prenup and you go by those terms. What he's trying to say is that Upon information and belief, the wife now has income from her sources of employment of approximately 8 to 9 million or more, significantly higher than what she earned at the time she signed the prenup. This new income was offered by her attorney. Her attorney stated her income has only gone up a few percent instead of him having 300 million. So again, her lawyer is talking about the provisions in the prenup. We can't see it, but this is what it's from. And says hers, as in her income, has gone up a few percents. But instead of him having $300 million and her having four, as in 4 million, he's still at 300 million and she's got 8 or 9 million. 300 million, y'all. And remember, financial disclosures were exchanged. So whatever she was presented with made her feel comfortable that he had 300 million and therefore made whatever the terms were reasonable. He says not only, but this is another reason Simon is claiming that this prenup should be invalid. Check this out. He says not only, so number one is that she's making way more money. Is his first point about the finances, which once again, that's not a strong argument. Courts never want to discourage women to work and go back to work. In fact, generally it can, if there was no prenup, her working diminishes potential alimony. But this prenup never said anywhere in there that she could not go back to work. That would be my strongest argument as her lawyer, to be like, Your Honor, this is foolishness. He just don't want to pay her money because we spent a whole year negotiating this. So if it was so important that Miss Thing don't go back to work, he could have made it in one sentence. Wife may not return to work. That's it. That's it. That's all. Or wife may not return to work without husband's written consent. It's supposed to be in the confidentiality part. Add that one more sentence. Just one more. You're already paying for a whole bunch of work. One more. But here's what he's claiming. Now, this is the good one. He says, if you're not going to do it based on her doubling her income from 4 million to 8, show him some mercy. Show him some mercy because he's in ICE. It said husband's circumstances have changed since the execution of the prenup. Specifically, on or about the evening of February 19th, husband was detained by U.S. Immigration and Enforcement, where he currently remains detained as of the filing of this response. As a result, so remember, this response was filed this morning. So as of today, he's still there. He ain't not back in the motherland yet. Husband has not been able to operate his business and generate the revenues and income that were disclosed in the prenup. These changes were not foreseeable at the time of negotiating of the execution and therefore should not be held valid. You a damn lie. You're a damn lie. Because before you got married, came back and all that foolishness. It says, great question, while we're getting the internet to function properly, is the marriage even legal since he wasn't here legally? So I would say yes. Yeah, the marriage is still legal. But she may be able to argue there's something under the law. There's void and voidable. An example of a contract that's void is if a grown-up makes a contract with a 5-year-old, right? The 5-year-old can't contract, so that's void. Voidable is something like this, where you were deceived and it is your choice as the victim to decide, do I want to ratify this contract and proceed, or do I want to go to the court and say, whoa, 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 they lied to me, they did me wrong. So thank you for that super chat, Aisha. Thank you. Sorry, I didn't mean to sound garbled. I do need to stamp my stuff. You're right. I usually do watermark. I was in such a hurry. But basically with this one, in other words, so what he's claiming is, Your Honor, don't enforce the prenup because there is a law that says where circumstances change in ways that were so unforeseeable that they could not have been anticipated at the time the prenup was negotiated, then the court should not enforce it. But no, baby, You knew you were here illegally since before you married her, because about a week before the marriage, the court ruled he filed papers to become a U.S. citizen, and the court said, "Hail to the null." Not only did they say "Hail to the null," they said, "Sir, you've been up here multiple other times as the prior time." So that was 2022. He was there as well in 2016, and you asked us the same thing, and we told you the same doggone thing. No, no means no. So for him to now say no enforcement because ICE got me, ICE got you for your fraud. So no, you knew there were any day now, there was a chance that you could get deported. It says, to your point, how can you grant a prenup if they couldn't get married? He could get married. They could marry. He was just not here legally, which is a material fact that most wives would want to know before they marry you. In the same way that you got to disclose all material facts in order for a prenup to be considered signed with informed consent. If you withhold material facts, so if he would have withholded exactly how much money he owned, for an example, and then later wants to enforce it, she could say, well, no, I didn't know he had 300 million. I thought he only had 4 million. Because you cannot fully consent without having all the material information. On her end, he withheld the material information that he wasn't a citizen. All right, so da 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 da. So he's claiming, Simon is trying to claim that there was no valid, that the prenup is invalid because there was no meeting of the minds, and because she did not uphold her bargain, which was keeping things confidential and not going back to work. Mind you, nowhere in there does it say she can't go back to work. But I do. Okay, so they did all this talk about this damn confidentiality provision. Here we are. I want to read it to you, and I want to hear your thoughts on whether or not her being on Housewives and doing the interviews that you're familiar with, whether any of that is a basis to deny enforcing the prenup, or basically if any of that is a violation of the confidentiality provisions. If she's violated this provision, a judge could invalidate the whole thing, or he could just make adjustments to what he's going to allow to slide. I think for it to be completely invalidated, Simon would have to be able to show that as a result of her breaching the confidentiality agreement, he lost in some way. That he lost money, he lost deals, and he can't do that. Not from what we've seen so far. All right, he lost because he got locked up by ICE because he had no business being here. After they told his behind he was deportable in 2022. All right, so here is the start of the confidentiality provision. It says, without the prior written consent of the other party, neither party shall disclose, publish, cause to be published, or provide information or documentation to any other individual or entity which refers to the prenup, which describes the substance of the prenup, or depicts or discloses any financial information of either party, or depicts or discloses negative or disparaging information as to the other party and or their relationship, or the other party's family, their family relationship, and or the other party's professional or business interests. I haven't heard her say anything negative about his business or his money. If anything, she's like, he got money. And then it also says, neither party shall permit or direct any third party to do anything that they're not allowed to do pursuant to this. It says, quote, the provisions, it says the provisions don't apply to like any attorneys, accountants, bankers, financial advisors, or governmental entities, of course. And then in C, it says, without the prior written consent of the other party, each party shall take all reasonable measures to prevent any of info to third parties regarding any past or present aspect of the relationship whatsoever. Again, got to take all measures to prevent any disclosure of any info to third parties regarding any past or present aspect of their relationship whatsoever, except parties may disclose information regarding the parties' relationship or their children that are the product of the party's relationship, if any, to a family member or close personal friend. Anyway, meaning you can tell your family members or your close personal friends. You can't tell our business on the Breakfast Club. It says, without the prior written consent of the other party, neither may directly or indirectly use, disclose, repeat, or publish any info in any manner, or permit, authorize, or participate in, aid, or abet such use, disclosure, repetition, or publication of anything regarding the party's relationship, their kids, or the terms. And it says, by way of example, in case anybody's confused, it says here, by way of example, but not limitation, neither may engage in any of the following conduct or permit anyone else to do it without the prior written consent of the other party in each instance. I'm going to jump down to what I care about. Oh, this one is release, disclosure, or publication of any pictures, tapes, films, embodiments, basically like picture, their voice likeness. So you can't play an audio recording. She couldn't play an audio recording. She couldn't show his picture or anything like that without him giving written, not oral, written consent. Also, the second one is, this is interesting, the release, disclosure, or publication of any picture, tape, film, or the like, whether now or hereinafter created, or other record recording any aspect of any activity in or about any home, office, or other property owned, occupied, or used by the other party or any of his, her family, whatever, except parties can disclose it to a close family friend. In other words, any aspect of any activity in or about any home, office, or other property owned, occupied, or used by the other party. I think Porsha's argument would be here, I can record the house because the court ordered him and the prenup says he has a different house. So I'm allowed this one because it said you can't do it of or any other property owned, occupied, or used by the other. And while it is owned by Simon, but it's being occupied and used by her. I don't know if that's the agreement. And then lastly, it also says here, you cannot, quote, give any interview, write, or appear in connection with, or assist or cooperate in the preparation or presentation of any book, article, interview, program, or other production or publication of any kind concerning the other party. It says that she later made negative or disparaging, you're not supposed to release negative or disparaging info regarding the other person, regarding the party's relationship, or any past aspect. It also says, quote, it says the confidentiality provision is for the benefit of each party and shall be fully enforceable by each party. Simon acknowledges that Porsha's privacy and the non-disclosure of confidential information regarding her are vitally important to her, and Porsha acknowledges basically the same about him. And it says that, basically you should be able to go to court on it. So that's the law, the main area he's hanging his hat on. And he's saying the court should not enforce this prenup because she sought to film in the house and has been filming in the house. Again, part of the question is, okay, if a judge is going to say, all right, I'm going to invalidate this whole thing, which it sounds like if he's going to do it, it's going to cause her to lose millions. I'm going to put it up this way to make it bigger. That would cause her to lose millions. So in other words, if a court is going, what the hell? There you go. If a court is going to penalize her by millions, he's going to have to be able to show how he was damaged by her recording in the house. And I don't think he could show that because those kind of provisions are usually, they don't want you recording if they've got Viagra on the counter or they got some private stuff, But if he can't show that her recording caused him to lose in some way, it's not breaching his peace either. Okay, she's recording in a house you don't live in. I still don't see, how that hurts him. It says Porsha is entitled to half the equity in the home. I believe the house is a $7 million. So whatever that equity is, we know it's at least 2.4 million because that's what he put down. And she already owns a $1.8 million home. So that's where that's coming from. She's also entitled to some large lump sum of money, and they haven't disclosed what that dollar amount is. But I'm going to guess it's $1 million amount. Yeah, I agree, Angela. I don't think there's much money for her to get other than the equity in the house. I think he's fighting so hard for the equity in the house because I think that's his main source. Because here's the thing. In most prenup agreement, like when you're negotiating and you're exchanging docs, most times the issue is the man going to show he makes way less than he does? Nobody's checking for the fact that he may be saying he makes more and doesn't. So I would not be surprised if part of why Simon is fighting so hard is because it's going to require him to make some large lump sum to her that he cannot afford, that he don't have the money to come up with. Because the only way that it would be revealed that he ain't got the money will be when he defaults or when a lien is ruled, or, when he gets behind on spousal support. And guess what would happen then? If he's unable to pay Porsha whatever portion the judge determines is owed for that cash payment pursuant to the prenup or otherwise, then what could happen is instead of the 50-50 split equity that's supposed to happen with the house, a judge can grant her however much that would make her whole. So if she's entitled to an extra $1 million and he hasn't paid it, instead of her getting, what would that be? $3.5 million. Maybe she gets the first $4.5 million of the house and the right to sell it. Happens all the time. I actually, sometimes it's better to get a lump sum or get some type of a asset like a house instead of that cash. If your cash payment won't be in a lump sum, it's better to get some asset so you don't have to run around trying to collect spousal support from them. If you know anybody who's had to or was collecting spousal support for someone over the years, baby, unless their job is one that garnished and wages and then sent over that spousal support, that lady probably was chasing that man for that spousal support every month. It's hard. It says she messed up when she filed for divorce. The wife always has the inside track, but she filed shortly after, like maybe 2 weeks after the court and it was revealed publicly he wasn't a citizen. I think she was really doing that to protect herself. It says, well, allegedly house is in foreclosure. What money is she entitled to now? So if the house is in foreclosure, she should, they can't sell it. I just saw that. Can't sell it. And they absolutely can't sell it. There's what's called a lis pendens on the house. You always, if you're ever in a dispute over property, you file that. What that means is no one can close on that house without notifying you. Now, I'm not sure in a foreclosure context. I think it may diminish the lis pendens. I'm not exactly sure at the moment. I'm tired. But basically, Porsha filed a document in the file where he cannot sell it to anyone until the dispute between the two of them is resolved. And I'm not sure, but I believe that prevents a foreclosure, at least for a certain time being. I'll be able to pull it up if it's in foreclosure. I would be able to see that on the but I do know that she filed the lis pendens, which implies that perhaps they were discussing selling the house, because the reason you would put to prevent is you can't close on that property with a list. The title company will demand that whoever a lis pendens says, I am claiming money is owed to me or an interest in this house is owed to me. So I own a title company, Experience Title. You can reach me in Texas. I do closings all over the state. And what we do is if we see that, we require that you get a lien release from that person who filed that saying they're owed money. And until that person signs a notarized document saying they've been paid up or nothing is due, you ain't selling that house. You ain't selling that house. Yes. So in the end, the stalemate and the issue is that Simon is doing everything under his power to not have to give this lady this house. And he is also, let me see, is there anything else? Yep. He's also basically claiming he sold 2 houses that he had before to buy this house and put $2.4 million down. He's saying it would be unfair for, quote, wholly unfair and shocking to the conscience for the wife to be able to take the husband's $7 million premarital home, because he did own it before they married, and then collect a substantial amount of the home equity and receive an exorbitant financial payout from the husband under the prenup for only 15 months of marriage. He said, wife, it would be shocking to the conscience for wife to be able to take husband's $7 million home, get a substantial amount of the equity, and receive an exorbitant payout when the husband used over $2 million of his premarital money, so separate property, to purchase the house without any financial contribution from the wife. And it is unfair and shocking to the conscience for the wife to be able to take the husband's $7 million home and also keep her $1.8 million home, leaving the husband with no home in Georgia to live in. That makes me think that maybe it's not half of the equity that she gets. Maybe she gets the whole house. Because here he's saying, take the home and take his home and also have her own. Yep. And so this is just where he gets into the fact that it was unforeseeable that ICE was going to come get him. You know, the lies I just discussed. All right, let me see. Hold on. I'm going to answer the last few questions that we have on this. Let me know. And I don't see anybody yet chimed in with any questions. Tomorrow I'm going to do a call-in show. I'm going to do one if you guys have interest, because it's been a minute since I've done a legal call-in. We had a lot to cover on this one. But the gist of it is Simon's locked up in ICE. One of the jurors here, subscribers, has stated that she heard from another blogger that on the 27th of March, basically the government ordered he be deported to Nigeria. That's believable. Simon's been in ICE custody since February 19th. They were supposed to have a final divorce hearing on the 25th. They couldn't. It was postponed until today. Today, Simon's lawyer showed up and argued, hey, ICE won't even let him attend via Zoom. We need another postponement. The judge reset it for June 11th. Someone in the chat has reported that he has the deportation order and is just waiting to be sent back to Nigeria any day now. But to be clear, that doesn't mean Porsha wins. It means Simon will have to log in to Zoom from Nigeria to attend his final divorce hearing and try his divorce case from Nigeria. So we'll see how it goes there. Let me know in the chat. Do you feel like the prenup should still be honored now that Porsha makes twice as much and they were only married for 15 months? See, that's also his lawyer's fault. Your prenup, the financial amount that you get should be stacked based on the number of years that you're married. 15 months, I argue, year, like not perhaps hardly nothing for 1 year of marriage, and then for 2 years a little bit more, but it shouldn't be a windfall necessarily. Now we don't know what the number is. Simon's lawyers characterized it as a substantial, exorbitant amount, and plus she's either going to, it's unclear. Some of his language, he talks about half the house, and others he talks about her taking his house pursuant to the prenup and also keeping her 1.8 million. And again, this was only 15 months of marriage before she filed. Let me see these questions real quick. So that's what Porsha gets. She thought he was the retirement. Prenup may be overcome by the statute of frauds. What do you see in the prenup that the statute of frauds may apply to? It says he tricked her from the very beginning. He knew he was not even supposed to be in the country. Yeah, I think a judge is going to be very unsympathetic to the fact that he lied about even having a right to be here. He was probably thinking, I think he thought he would be able to convert his citizenship status into permanent resident status by their marriage, because it was a bona fide marriage, as opposed to when he tried to do that in the 90s or the 80s, and it was a scam marriage as listed in court documents. Aisha Ward, I want to tell you thank you again for the 2 super chats. Hey, Desiree, let's see what we got. It says, why would he agree to a prenup like this? The number one reason that most men do is they don't think they'll ever break up. They don't think they're going to break up like that. Secondly, it took a whole year to negotiate this prenup because she was willing to walk away. I think Simon really likes the limelight. He's attracted to a woman in that industry, and he was willing to perhaps pay more of a premium. But I also, I think this is a legitimate question because his position is, I would have never signed this if I thought she was going back to work. Because if that was the case, I didn't need to give her all this. I certainly never would have signed this if I knew she'd be making $4 million, right? 2 years later. So I think that's an argument that his lawyers are certainly going to make. But this is why I tell people, don't ever say you wouldn't sign a prenup. You got to read it first. Because if you get a Simon and Porsha prenup, you might want to sign that bad boy real quick before he changes his mind. Also, given that he married her under false pretenses, the prenup ought to be upheld entirely in her favor. I agree. If anything, he frauded her by not disclosing he was fighting deportation. Right. That's a material provision. There's no way he told her. I've read arguments on both sides. If he had told, here's how we know he didn't tell her. Her lawyer would have said that. I'm sorry, his lawyer would have said, the reason this is unforeseeable and da-da-da-da is she, or he could have said, she knew he was dealing with the deportation issues. And her lawyers have never said, oh yeah, he was honest about that. Oh, the criminal cases he's had aren't really relevant to this stuff because you can have a criminal record in a prenup. Prenup, really the disclosure for prenup is more so the things that would impact, material things that would impact their everyday life. And whether you're here legally or illegally, absolutely, would impact your everyday life. So it says, Lovely Beauty, what if they deport him and he runs off to Costa Rica home? Y'all know how hard it is to contain deportees. He can go anywhere in the world he wants. He just can't come to America. So that's fine. And I wonder if she, now it doesn't talk about any of their vacation homes. Why would he agree? At this point, she's getting whatever she can get. He's probably thinking he would leave her before he left. Yeah. And also he needed a prenup of some sort because this is his 5th marriage or 6th. I think he was married 5 times before. So this would be his 6th. So when you got a track record like that, yeah, you better get something signed. He'll absolutely end up in Dubai. Yeah, I think he'll want to always present as though he's just fine living a lavish life. And he can do that much better in Dubai and create that impression. My point is he will try to slither his way back to America. He will. And when I was in Dubai for Thanksgiving over the holiday, he was there. And he was there with this girl. And I took a video of him. He was like that. I didn't post it because nobody cares. But he was definitely there with this girl who looked a lot like Fallon. She was definitely in her early 30s. He has a type. And I mean, they had all the bottles coming out to him, boy. They were coming right there. So he's over there. I mean, and when you look like that, you got to have a gimmick, right? When you're 50 years old, and I feel like it was like a round little water bug, about a little round little face. When you look like a water bug, you're going to have money to get the young, beautiful women that he gets. And you're going to probably need to, love bomb them. Yeah. I like, and now that I've realized what it looks like love bombing somebody. Now that I know, like 60 days, I got to deal with you. Like, I'm all for it. All for it. It says Simon was a fool for signing that prenup. He was ordered to pay all the bills at the house, so Porsha had been living rent-free. And the prenup clearly had a provision that said if they separate, not only does Porsha get to stay in the home, but that Simon must leave the home. These lawyers are amazing because that's how come they're not like poor Drew and Ralph, where Ralph is living in the basement while Drew is living upstairs. That's what happens because under the law, when you're going through a divorce, a court cannot put the other party out of the house unless there is domestic violence. That's why sometimes you will see people fake domestic violence situations during a divorce because it's the only way to get the other one the hell up out the house. That's why Kim Zolciak and her ex-husband, Core or Crew or whatever that boy's name was, Crux or whatever it is, the two of them were living in hell because they were poor. And they ran up all their money and they couldn't afford 2 different residences and she couldn't make him leave. So the fact that Porsha's lawyers were smart enough to ensure there was a provision that said, if we are separated and we're going through a divorce, get the hell up out of here. I don't want to have to look at you. I don't want to have to. Oh yeah, I got some documents from Drew's. I'm going to do that with Vanessa from Reality Podcast. We're going to break that down this week too. All right, y'all. My voice said enough is enough, girl. Take your butt home. Don't forget, down below, you can book a consultation with me by clicking the little gift card. It's $159 for 30 minutes. You can go to my website and do it as well. You can also get that gift card and you can gift it to a friend or family member that you think could benefit from a consult. As well, my book. You can go down below, get my book, which is Background Checks 101. And then don't forget, I am going to be rolling out, I'm going to be doing a free webinar. If you think you want to go to law school, make sure that you text me to join my text community. Text me at 323-689-5683, and I'll keep you abreast of all the upcoming events. Y'all have a great evening. Oh, wait, somebody wants to call in. Julia, do you want to call in? Yeah, you can. I'll drop the link below. I want to go. I've been promising y'all a call in. I'll sit here for a few more minutes. If anyone wants to join real quick, I had pinned it to the top, but yeah. It says, why marry broke in stress? I'd rather cry in a Porsche. Here's the problem. They never let you know they're starting broke. Okay. They always, they love bomb you and they do very extravagant things in the beginning and then slowly reveal their brokenness to you. But by that point, you're so in love. And then they make you feel like, yep. Okay. They make you feel like, you just need to give them some time and they're going to get back up to what they had before and how they could love bomb you and give you all that stuff before. So it's just a recurring cycle. Don't ask me how I know, but I know too well. All right, guys, we'll do another call in another night. I think we're all getting scared and tired, and my voice is hating me. So let me add this on. All right, you guys have a great night. Good night, y'all.